What's going on, everybody? You've got the cardboard coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And today we have a very special guest on the podcast today. We've got Special One Cards, aka Paulo. How you doing today, man?
Good, good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate this.
We've been back and forth for quite some time. And I'm glad we were finally able to nail down a time for the podcast. I think this is going to be very informative for a lot of people, especially those who like soccer. Do you want to tell the audience where the name Special One Cards comes from? And that'll kind of help us
Yeah.
transition
So,
into all of
special,
this.
yeah, special one is so when I first started, right, kind of creating that Instagram profile for the card side of things. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go with it. It was kind of like, my regular Instagram name is Boston's Best One, but like, I didn't want to use that. I was kind of like, we got to do something separate. So my, I guess we call it kind of somebody that I really look up to, not look up to, but somebody I admire, right?
Yeah.
Is Jose Mourinho. And his nickname, obviously, self-dubbed, right? He dubbed
Yeah.
himself the special one. Everyone's at that press conference before, but
Yeah.
he wasn't far from the truth when he says that. So, kind of a tribute, homage to him. I am a Benfica fan. He did coach Benfica for the period, I think it was about 2.5 months. For those that didn't know that, now you know. And he left because of a disagreement with the new president at the club at the time. So if Benfica had kept him, who knows what could have happened at Benfica? Probably the same thing that happened at Porto. So it's an homage to Jose Mourinho, and hopefully someday he does coach a national team.
You and I are the same in a lot of ways. You're Portuguese, you collect soccer, you collect hockey, but where we differ the most is you're a Benfiquista, and I hate you guys. I'm kidding. I mean, you guys have a great team. I'm a Portista, but yeah, I know. You see, there you go. It's funny. When I was growing up, it was for me. It was like I got to pick. I just picked a color. Like I remember being like 4 or 5, and I've always like. I mean, I grew up in Toronto, so I think that kind of has something to do with it. Just like all of our teams are blue, except for
Yeah.
the Raptors, and I like gravitated towards the blue, and I had no idea like if the team was good or not. Like, and then I started watching. I'm like, yo, this is like right around the time that where it was like right before they won their Champions Leagues. And so I probably was like 6 or 7 when I saw a Champions League victory. And I was like, yo, this team's fucking sick. Like I was like, well, this team is nuts. And then like watching like Ricardo Quaresma and like some of his like Trivelas, like I was just like, man, he was my favorite player growing up, probably still is, to be honest. I mean, it's like impossible to emulate your game after someone who's like so erratic and quite honestly, like didn't really have like live up to that trajectory at the time. But man, that guy, the amount of world class goals that he scored, I and just like his demeanor and like randomly he'd show up at trading with like a shaved head. I'm like, man, I fucking love that. You know what I mean? Like just like, and then like next day he'd be like tatted from like the neck down. I'm like, man, this guy doesn't give a shit. And it was
And
so unlike anything like Portuguese, right? Like,
yeah,
Portuguese people are typically very traditional. Like, like no one in my family has tattoos, and they're all very like, there's like there's just rules, right? That you just
yeah, oh,
don't
yeah.
break. And he was very much the complete opposite. And I was like, I love you for that.
You know what he reminds me of when I look at North American athletes, right? And kind of and Ricardo Quaresma, for those that don't know who he is, I still think he's one of the most technically gifted players I've ever seen play the game in terms of the skills he had. Uh, he was a player that did not live up to the hype. Obviously, he was uh, a bigger prospect than Ronaldo, and Sir Alex Ferguson almost took him to United with Ronaldo. And if he had done that, we may have seen a different trajectory, right? But
Yeah.
I think charisma came due with the national team later on when they won the European Cup. He was
Yeah.
mature.
Well, he was, if it wasn't for he scored against Croatia, didn't he?
Yeah.
In the extra time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And but going back to my first point is he reminds me a lot of and he's kind of the Allen Iverson of Portuguese soccer.
And he was my favorite basketball player.
You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
talk about, untraditional guys, with dreads. I mean, Charisma showed up with dreads a few times too, and cornrows and things of that nature, tattoos, and he would wear the wild outfits, and so it reminds me a lot of Allen Iverson in some capacity, and kind of Iverson, same thing, never won a title, right? But was revered by many. And I think Charisma is in that same fashion. For me, even I may be a little bit older than you, but I think at that point in time, I was playing in a lot of rec leagues in Boston, and it was one of the guys that I would try to emulate my
Yeah,
game after too, just because that flair was
yeah,
incredible. But nonetheless, a Porto player, a guy I liked, and I think it's unique that you brought up that you're a Portista, because I think it's changed a little bit, right?
yeah,
Where people respect, and we have fans of players now too, right?
yeah.
I remember, back. I mean, my dad is still very like anti anything.
I
Port,
hated Ronaldo for the first like 5 years of his career because like he came from Sporting. Like
yeah,
I couldn't stand it. I was
yeah,
like, oh fuck this guy, and then like
yeah,
once like enough time had passed and he was like at Madrid, and I was like, you know what, like I can officially like you again because like you're no longer associated with Sporting.
yeah. It's changed, and I think it's for the better.
For sure.
I mean, for the better, obviously. So, but those are the three big ones in Portugal, right? Sporting, Benfica, and Porto, and Braga's right there now
Dude,
too.
I
And
have a friend who in elementary school was a diehard Braga fan. Diehard. Like I was like, why the fuck do you like Braga? Like, and he's like from Braga. And so like, and we actually called him Victor Braga. Like, his name was Victor Braga, man. And
Braga's a nice little city, though. If you ever have
yeah,
a chance,
yeah,
I
yeah. And so it's
recommend.
like watching them be successful and like make it to Europa League, and I like honestly, my heart goes out to him, and I'm like, that's one of the guys. There was also when I was in elementary school, or I lied, when I was in like early high school days, um, a guy who worked there was a diehard Man City fan, and this was back when Man City was playing like third division,
Yeah,
like not even in the championship. And I was like, fuck that team. They suck. You know what I mean? Like I was like, and he like every match he'd go to like a local bar. And I was like, how does Man City have a bar when they're so trash?
yeah,
And the minute they got bought and they got oil money and they started buying Robinho and Tevez and Adebayor, I was like, there is nobody that I feel better for than you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's one of the things that you don't really see a lot in North American sports where a team's whole like history and lineage like it changes overnight, right? Like
yeah.
what's possible for them because of there's no salary cap, and that's like not like a North American system, right?
Exactly.
There's some form of salary cap in every single league except for when it comes to football, and we're going to refer to soccer as football in this episode
Yep.
because
That's
that's
fine.
what it's actually called. And so it's just a cash infusion or like a change in ownership just makes such a big difference when it comes to like the I mean you look at Benfica, for instance. Last year they probably sold 180 million euros worth of players, right?
Yep.
And if that team had money, those are players that would be there in the future helping build a squad that would be competitive in Champions League on a regular basis, right? So like I love about football is that every club kind of has their own purpose, and it's never to tank, because like if you tank, there's no draft picks, you just
Exactly.
lose revenue, you lose your fans, you
Yep.
get dumped down to like a second division tier. But instead, the incentive is like to really cultivate these players, these homegrown talents, beef up your academy, and then sell these players, and then hopefully continue to do good business and eventually bring yourself up that way. So I love that about football. And actually, in many ways, it kind of like mirrors, um, like buying cards and then like at like at a low and then selling those cards at a high and then being
Right.
able to buy into like a more expensive card next time and like kind of doing it. And so like I think that's one of the reasons why I love football and like the crossover between cards. Now, a lot of the people on or listening probably don't know that one of your biggest shticks is like forecasting a player. Like I've seen 2 years in advance. I've seen 6 months in advance. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you drop these comprehensive footnotes, and I guess it's more than footnotes, but I guess that was the easiest way for me to refer to them. of players that chances are no one's ever heard of, and they usually end up making a big money move to a notable club. So my question to you is, how do you get your information?
So I do a few different things. First and foremost, I watch a lot.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be honest, these first 2 weeks of the season, I was in Portugal obviously for 2 weeks. I watched a lot there with my dad. But now that I'm home again, it's probably gonna be more difficult. We have a new 5-month-old in the family, so
Congratulations.
my wife is probably like can't be watching soccer all the time.
Yeah.
So I watch a lot, I watch the leagues that people watch, right? But then I also watch the leagues that people don't watch. I have an affinity for Serie A too, as well. Growing up, you probably know this,
Me
Serie A
too.
was the best league in the world.
Yeah.
There's no question about it.
Yep.
And then the Portuguese league, right? I watch it
Of course.
because it's the Portuguese league. I have to watch it. And for people to understand why it's important to watch the league, and I'll throw the French league in there too, because I watch maybe 2 to 3 games a week. I try to pick and choose based on players that I'm watching because I want to do the eye test. It's important. I'm always telling people you have to do the eye test. It's significantly important to do that, not just watch YouTube highlights because
Yeah.
they only cover the
The
good and
good. Yeah.
highlights,
Yeah.
right? So I do that. I read a few newspapers daily. And I'm talking about not in the US. If in Portugal, I don't know if you're aware of this. I don't know when the last time you were there, but there are I think there's 5 separate newspapers that come out daily on soccer in Portugal.
Really?
So you have 5 different newspapers in a country of 8 million people that are publishing daily on soccer. So you guys are aware of what some of them are. Abola, which is ABOLA.pt. You have Record, which is RCORD.pt. Those are the 2 significant ones that I look at, the ones that I like the best. Generally, a lot of their stuff is pretty spot on. It's also some of it can also be kind of glamorized, but generally it's pretty spot on. So reading, watching games, doing some of the background. Now, the problem with some of the soccer stuff is, or football shows, so we're using that name, is one of the things that we fail to kind of get an introspective on are the players' backgrounds and their life, right? Their second life, their personal life. Where in North America, we get a lot of exposure to those, who they are, what they do.
Yeah.
We just saw that with Mason Greenwood, right? What he did was wrong. I'm not going to go into that, but you saw exactly people made prejudgments on, and this happens across all sports.
Yeah.
Think in soccer, it's a little harder to look at those things. So when I'm looking at players, I do those things. I read a lot. I watch the games. I then try to identify their cards, right? And generally, I can pick up on that, which cards they have, and then the other thing on top of it, now in today's market, to be really kind of to find the right card, you have to identify a player that only has 1 or 2 rookie cards. So case in point is, Dusan, Rafael Leão. They only have
Yeah.
1 rookie card really, with very limited parallels, cracked ice and a red ticket and a rookie, the regular
Yeah.
ticket.
Yeah.
So
But
that's
it's,
what you
I'm sorry, keep going.
no, so those are kind of the steps I take, right? And identifying those. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna buy, like I've been buying Antonio Silva because he's a Benfica player. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah. Yeah.
him. He grew
Yeah.
up about a mile away from my parents. So situations like that on the collecting side, which is why I collect hockey too. I think the hockey market has the strongest collecting base in all of sports cards, without question. The true collectors are in hockey. I say that all the time, but I think so with the soccer market, right? When you're trying to pick those guys you want to make money with, you have to identify, especially in this market, identify, okay, this player only has this rookie card in this set. And there's a few guys right now that through the past few months that I identified that people should take a look at and consider.
So one thing I find difficult when it comes to, because I think that like I probably don't watch as much football as you. I definitely I watch like a lot, and for me, identifying the card, and we talk about how there's like several different sets. It's like which set is the most likely to garner the most amount of interest. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
a lot of times when these guys peak, it might be like 2 or 3, or not even peak, but like when they get like hype in the market, it's like 2 or 3 years later. Like if we look at like Balogun, right? He just got sold to Monaco. I mean, likely
Yep.
this is probably not his peak, right? Like if he plays for the US, chances are, that'll probably
I move on again.
bring his stuff up, right? But at the very least, like this is the guy who was it 2021 Prism?
Yep.
And like relatively unnoticed when he first came out, right? And then I find as they become more and more noticed, like Tops and Panini, they start printing them in like so many different sets, right? So it's like, is the Prism his rookie? And like in this case, I think that's probably going to be the most desirable because
Right.
people generally gravitate towards Prism. But I just find it very interesting that like you have to think about who your next consumer is going to be, specifically when it comes to soccer, because a lot of times like the true rookies are stickers, right? Like, and for me,
Yes.
like personally, I'm a sticker guy. I've always been a sticker guy. I'll take stickers over, like Julian Alvarez has a sticker that from
The
three
Argentina League.
FIFA three. Yeah, he's got the FIFA 365.
Yep.
I was like, this is his rookie. I don't give a shit. Like, and I was really early on Alvarez, and like I still like made money off it, but I found that selling that sticker was so much more difficult than I felt it should have been. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm like, this is his true rookie. This makes no sense to me. Like, this is a blue back, so like even shorter printed than the blacks.
Yep.
Like if you actually chasing this guy's cards or this guy's rookies, this is what you want. And just like the general market was like, no, give me Prism. And I'm like, Prism came out 3 years after this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what? I just didn't make any sense to me. And,
Yeah.
and I found that that's happened to me several times now.
Yeah. I think so. I like stickers as well. I don't necessarily flip stickers either. I keep a lot of the stickers because I
Yeah.
think they're two separate markets, right? I guess the best comparison I can give is kind of like, an NFL draft pick, right? A quarterback, for example, and then you have his collegiate card. Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't consider his collegiate card really his rookie because he's not in his pro kit, but
Yeah.
some of these stickers only have the portrait of the player as it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a dicey situation.
Well, because like if you look at like Maradona or like
Yeah.
Pele, like I mean, the rookie stickers are like and I think that personally, if we're gonna get soccer like to the place where everyone is, or Gary Vee's been talking about, and all these other influencers talking about 2 years ago, how it's about to pop ahead of last year's World Cup,
Yeah.
which it didn't really happen,
It
right?
did.
Like never really happened. If that's gonna happen, I think that the cornerstone is like fundamentally from the stickers. Do you know what I mean? Because like people didn't collect soccer cards, right?
Yeah.
Like that was never a thing to collect soccer cards. Those mega cracks cards that are so valuable now, those
Yep.
things were, you couldn't give them away when they first came out. Do you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like no
Exactly.
one gave a shit. The quality is like very crap. Like it's like playing cards. Like if you've ever held
Yeah.
a mega cracks, they feel like playing
Yeah.
cards.
That's
Like
why they're so tough to grade.
exactly. That's
They're
exactly it.
trash paper cards. But I mean, it's a valid point. I think this. So here's the issue with kind of the soccer football market that I see, and this is directly probably the manufacturer's fault too, and the collectors collectively, is that we're trying to mature the sport at a rapid pace that cannot be sustained. And what I mean by that is soccer does not have that history that baseball or even hockey has. You look at like the Parkhurst sets of the 50s, right? It does not have that lineage. We can go back in soccer. If we sit here and talk about that, give me a set of soccer that's got, you know, from the vintage side, right? That I'm talking, that has that we can't name it. I mean, there's a Pele rookie sticker, but there's a Eusebio rookie sticker for Panini, but
Yeah.
those aren't
I
so.
think I think the Maradona was it 69 was probably,
Yeah,
or 70 79 was
79.
probably the most notable like Panini set to debut.
Okay.
I think just because like the crisp white borders, like it was I think it was a World Cup set too, because they're
Yeah.
all World Cup kits, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean anyway, but again, like you're right. You're right.
And I think because right now what I'm seeing and I haven't gotten into any breaks of this year's product yet
Me neither.
because I feel like there's too much of it. And I think the manufacturers are really trying to push and speed up this like we got to catch history. We got to catch history. We can't do that. I think people got to relax a little bit. I've been buying my singles and I'm happy with that. It saves me money, you know. But I think that's a problem. And I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I just kind of look at them kind of like this, they're doing this wrong, and it's could cause an issue down, you know, in a few years in terms of what was out there. I mean, you look at Jude Bellingham, he
I
started
was
off,
just about to say this guy he's an incredible player. He's what,
yeah,
20 years old now? Incredible player.
yep,
But how many rookies of this guy already exist?
that's the
Right? Like,
problem. Yep, that's
and
the
like, how do you
problem.
choose one? Right? You choose a sapphire. Do you choose Merlin? Do you choose just a conventional tops chrome? Do you choose Bundi? Like,
Yeah,
given the
and
fact
that
that
probably goes back to your
Bundy's prints
initial.
were so shit.
Yeah, and that probably goes back to your initial kind of the conversation we started here was, well, how do you choose which one? And I guess you don't. You just figure out what you like,
I guess.
or maybe if you're a guy that flips cards really quickly, then you do that. You pick one that is going to move for you quickly. But it's hard to say. I mean, the Jude Bellingham thing is, I said it a year and a half ago. I continue to say it. He's generational. Um, I've done the comparison with Pedri a year ago. I told people Jude was the guy, and I think he is. Not to say that Pedri won't come due,
Yeah.
because, but the Barcelona, and this is the warning to all the collectors out there. If you are a Barcelona fan, fine, but the Barcelona marketing machine is real. And that's what people don't understand in this hobby is any kid that comes from Barcelona, people automatically think is going to be a tremendous player. Now,
Yeah.
I have a post coming out today, and I was actually going to delay it because I was going to try to go on eBay and buy some more stuff, but of a former Barcelona academy player who went to Juve and he's now playing in Portugal. Okay. He plays for Estoril Praia. You guys probably know from the 2020 Merlin set. He was in Chrome as well. I think he's in Sapphire as well. Alejandro Marx
Yeah.
plays for
I got a bunch of his stuff actually.
got 2 goals in his
Yeah.
first three.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I got a bunch of his stuff.
about before
So
that
cheap.
maybe he's coming due now. So he's gone through Barcelona and Juventus. So obviously those teams saw something in him. So he's a prime example of a guy that has multiple rookies, right? But it's kind of like, I don't think it matters because if he pops off and let's say he scores another 2 goals in the next 3 games, people are going to want to look for him.
Yeah, but I'm saying like more for like the top guys, right? Like let's say like in the case of Jude Bellingham, I agree when it comes to like these like diamond in the roughs. Like I think it's relatively easy to buy those. You pretty much buy any parallel that's like number to 50 of like these cheap players. Like I remember, I mean, I've been like grabbing Okafors because I'm like, I think like this guy should be on a top club at some point, right? Like I've seen him play multiple different leagues now. I've seen him play in the World Cup. I'm like, this guy can ball, like Noah Okafor, like, I think he's a good player, but um I find it interesting. And it kind of reminds me of baseball a little bit. You know how Bowman first come out and these players don't really reach like maturation until like, I would say, like I've done the evaluations and it's like roughly 6 or 7 years. It's like from the time the Bowman first hits, like let's say, Vladdy is like 2016 or let's say Acuna, right? Acuna is going up for MVP right now. It's 2023 right now. He's 2016. So like 7 years.
Yeah.
And like that's maturation of this card. He might continue to win another one. He might win another one after that and after that. And he's not even guaranteed to win this one, but now he's playing up to his potential 7 years later. I think that the way that the football collectors or soccer collectors view these products should be more like Bowman firsts, because a lot of these guys take a very long time to reach maturation. Even in the case of like Liao, like, I mean, I don't think he's made it to where he needs to yet, but it took it like 3 years to even get on anyone's radar. Do you know what I mean? Before anyone even like thought about calling him like close to world class. Do you know what I mean? Like, so a lot of these products, they come out and these players are ridiculously hyped. I mean, like Yusufa Mukoku's one that like I gravitated towards. And early on, I was like, I want to grab a bunch of his stuff because I mean, this kid's 16 years old. I was, watching some academy highlights and then watching him play for Dortmund, start as a 17-year-old, getting subbed on as a 16-year-old. I was like, this is not normal. Like, I don't think you guys understand that this kid should be in high school right now. And he's playing for a top club in Europe in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And I mean, here we are, he's 18 years old and everyone's calling him a bust. And I'm like, this is funny. Like this is borderline comical, So
Still believe in him a lot too. 18 years old, people got to calm down. That's one of the things. There's no patience in this market. I think so. The other part of it is like the soccer football market. They want to be like the NFL market where you can flip players week to week. It doesn't work that way.
Well, but the
You
NFL players are coming into the NFL as 24-year-olds and like 23-year-olds. And do you know what I mean? Like there's no 18 or 17 or 16-year-old playing in the NFL. That was not possible. Same thing with like the NBA. I mean, there's occasionally kids drafted out of high school like LeBron, but how often does that happen?
not
Almost
often,
never. They do
but
like 3 years in college and then they get drafted.
you brought up a really good point about which cards to get. Now the top guys, the manufacturers know they're going to be top guys, so they manufacture a lot of different varieties and different SKUs of that player. What's unique though, a set that I love Chronicles every year, because Chronicles is sneaky in terms of the players that get put in there
That's true.
have another card. Now this year Panini went out and made a La Liga set, and they made also a Serie A select set. So you had the France score set. The France score set I'm really high on. There's a lot of prospects in there with their first rookie cards that people aren't aware of that are going to be very good players, at least 3 to 4 players that I think. So that's where people need to focus now. And I'm not trying to say that Top Scrum is trash, because Top Scrum is great and Merlin's really nice too. But these other little sets are really important because you have players that are playing for, let's say, like a UD Almeida in Spain,
Yeah.
or Italy. You could have somebody playing for Sassuolo who produces players, that their only cards are going to be on their set. So I encourage people never to ignore that stuff and try to stray away from that path of, oh, I got to get Chrome, I got to get
Yeah.
this. Those players could be in those sets and you're not aware, just like Bowman baseball.
Yeah. It's
Those,
funny. I feel like Merlin does that too, but like in like a little bit more of a mainstream way. Like I remember like Luca Romero debuted in Merlin, and I was like, yo, I want more of this guy's stuff like last year. And then you see Arda Guler making an
yep.
appearance this year, obviously with like a ton of hype behind him after the Madrid move. And like had that not happened, I mean, we probably could have had as much Arda Guler as you really wanted, for a little bit. But yeah, no, I agree with you. So you were saying what France score?
Yeah, the French Panini score set that came out, what was it, this past spring or like late last year? There's some really key, I think, rookies that are coming out. I mean, Turkey's got a rookie. He's got a designated rookie RC logo in that set too.
Yeah. Doesn't he have some Tops Now stuff as well?
He does have a Tops Now card. Now, some people have claimed that's his real rookie. I get
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's
The
like Florian Wirtz, right? Same thing.
print run on the Cherokee is over, I think, 1,500 or 1,800. So it's not like the Holland stuff
Yeah.
where it's low printed. So I don't look at that Tops Now card as, it's a cool card, but for me, I don't care about that card. The Merlin from the past Merlin release, they didn't put an RC logo on it. So is that his rookie card too? I don't know. And I like
Don't you
that.
hate when they do that? I mean, I don't know if I hate it, but it's just very interesting because even I remember the first or the second Merlin set or the second Topps Chrome set. There was a lot of players in there that didn't have rookie card logo or RC logos, but I like that was I'm like, this is their first card.
Yeah.
I'm like, people are just throwing out like parallels of
I think
players.
as a hobby, we'll acknowledge that like the Turkey Merlin from last year's is rookie, but then you also have that score product. So the score product's got the RC logo on it, and it's from the same year as Merlin. So, I bought a gold insert of his out of there too for under $100. It was like, why not? I'm high on Turkey as it is,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. But that's another guy who had so much hype and like, like hasn't lived up to it yet. Do you know what I mean? Like
19 years.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the guy that, like, if his cards were to debut with an RC logo 3 years ago or 2 years ago, people would be spending thousands of dollars. Like, I remember seeing the Sydney Rabier, uh, 1 of 1 superfractor sell for like 16K or some shit. And
Yeah,
I was like, what are we doing here?
first edition one, I think too.
Yeah.
I have the Conseil Sound first edition. I still have that 1 of 1. I
Yeah.
haven't happy to hold it and just, whatever. But it's like, well, what could I get for that? If that Rayburger sells for that much, what could I get for this? But it's speculation, you know what I mean? And I think in the soccer market, we just need a little more patience with players because, like you said, you brought up a good point, is people need to start looking at this like baseball.
Yeah.
24 years old, 25, even 20. Like a lot of these guys are in their prime at 26, 27 years old. You had people
Think of
last year.
like Bernardo Silva. Like when that guy was, even when he was playing on Monaco, he wasn't who he is, who just won. Like, I mean, his run during the Champions League last year is notable, like as like an all-time run. Like that guy was balling out of his mind.
To me, he's a top. I won't even say. I want to say top 5 player in the world just because of influence on the game. He's a player that doesn't need to score, and he influences the game. You saw him at the World Cup for Portugal. He was playing in front of the center backs. You come back at the ball and then push up. You know what I mean? So perfect example of a player that doesn't get any hobby love. Uh, at Monaco, he was in his last 2 seasons there. He was pretty instrumental.
Yeah.
That's that team. They had the Portuguese coach was there, Leandro Jardim. Mbappe was there.
Yeah, of course.
There was a bunch of really good players there at the time. And
But
he
like
was.
that was 2016 though, right? And like now you're looking like I would say that this is the best version of Bernardo and it's 2023, right? Like again, like 7 years after, like 8 years after, So yeah, it's just very interesting watching like if you were to collect stuff from his Monaco days or even his Benfica days, like how much time it takes, like true patience.
And that's kind of where I feel like soccer really aligns with hockey a lot, right? You've got like Tage Thompson this year in hockey
I love that stuff.
up, right? And like his rookie's from what, 20, is it 18 or 27?
16.
There you go. I
Yeah.
mean, another prime example of
Oh no,
why.
2017.
So it's like, yeah, you don't want to hold everything because you want to move on to other stuff. But like some players, if you believe in them, just tuck them away, throw them in your PWCC vault or something, and just
Yeah.
forget about it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
simple.
Well, like Jack Hughes was a bust up until last season, right? And like again, 2018 guy drafted first overall. And then all of a sudden last year he puts up like 105 points, and everyone's like, this guy's top 10 player in the league. You're like, well, I mean,
I mean,
now he's 22. So like, thank you.
kind of like these guys calling Darwin Nunez a bust when they're comparing him to Erling Haaland, and I'm kind of like, you guys got to relax. What people don't realize is that Darwin Nunez shows up at Benfica 3 years ago, does nothing, is
Yeah.
crap. People at Benfica are upset, like they thought this guy was going to be great. Uh, year after a year of adjustment, turns into a good player. Benfica sell him, for what was 87 million, I
Yeah. A
think.
lot of money.
And Benfica, Porto, Sporting, they're the best in the world. There's no, I tell people all the time, people are like, well, Dortmund's really good at it too. I'm like, listen, Dortmund doesn't have the longevity of those clubs.
I
You're a
agree.
Porto fan. You look at the '03 Porto team that won time was the UEFA Cup. Then they won the Champions League the
Bro,
year after.
back to back. Yeah.
Had Anderson Deco, they had Carvalho, they had Paulo Ferreira, they had Benny McCarthy. They had these really excellent players, and a lot of them Mourinho brought from
He
Leiria.
took everybody. Yeah.
So there's something to say about development and having these players let them develop over those years or 3-year span, and then they move on. So I think Liverpool fans, I think, not to harken back on Darwin Nunez, but I think a big year is coming from him. Will he score like 40, 50 goals? Probably not. But I can see him scoring over 25 goals in the Premier League this year.
Well, especially because I mean, there's reports that Salah's out, right?
Yeah, they're saying the Portuguese kid from Benfica who's at Celtic, Jota, was the guy that was. There's some really weird rumors going on with that in Saudi Arabia. I've heard 2 different rumors. I won't go on the first one. The other rumor I heard was that the Saudis that support that team are giving backlash because they don't know who he is, and they need a big star power. So Mo Salah's their target. And I would actually like that because I like to see Jota back in Europe. I think he left a little too early, but there's,
I mean,
again,
especially to go from like the Scottish league, right? Like I feel like he never really got his shot in like true Europe. And like no disrespect to Scottish league, but
yeah, no, I agree. And people are really kind of up in arms about this whole Saudi thing, right?
yeah, I'm
But
curious. What's your take?
so I understand why some players are going. this is life-changing money. And some people will say, well, they were making good money before. I'm like, well, you're not in that situation. You can't speak on that.
Yeah.
He's going to offer me like, what's his name went to
Jordan Henderson's getting paid 700,000 euros a week, bro.
I mean,
Jordan Henderson.
it's not only going to change your life, but it's going to change generations down your, you know what I mean? So, and people call me a Ronaldo fanboy and a Messi hater. I'm not a Messi hater. I love Messi. I've enjoyed watching him. Both players have been great, but let's call a spade here. But Messi in the MLS versus Messi in Saudi Arabia are two different things. The MLS has a bunch of decent players, but we also have players that
Who's decent?
We also have players
who's decent in the MLS?
construction playing the MLS. Nothing against construction workers. Got a lot of friends who work construction, but Saudi Arabian league is full of stars now, and Ronaldo yesterday scores two goals,
hat trick. No, you had a hat trick and an assist, bro.
But there's no news on that, right?
No, TSN's fucking. There's a Messi assist in the 98th minute in some bullshit League Cup game. I'm like, bro, what are we watching here? I'm like, Ronaldo just scored a hat trick and an assist, and there's no coverage. I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
So, for me, Fox just bought. I don't know if you knew this, but they just bought the Saudi League rights, TV rights.
I didn't.
So Fox Soccer, Fox Sports, Fox Soccer bought the rights for that for North America.
Wow.
There is something there. And I anticipate if you have the MLS on one TV and if you have the Saudi League on TV, I'm probably going to say 9 out of 10 people are going to watch the Saudi League because of the star power there. So
have you seen the lineup for the All-Star lineup for the Saudi League? I'm like, bro, that's like two like world-class 11s.
Yep. And and Ronaldo's playing with I don't know if you remember him, Benfica, Talisca.
Yeah, of course. He was playing with him before that, though. Yeah, he was already on the team.
Yeah, he was already.
Yeah.
Pretty decent player.
Yeah. He got Mane next to him too now.
Yeah. So I mean, put those three guys up against anybody. I mean, I would.
Yeah.
I think it's good for soccer to have that competition amongst leagues. I think it'd be cool if they allowed them into the Champions League. It'd be really kind of interesting.
That would be interesting.
Not gonna happen, but
it'd be Ronaldo's comeback story. Let me ask you something. Do you think Ronaldo plays at the next World Cup?
Absolutely.
What?
Yes, absolutely.
What?
After the last, I was in doubt, in limbo on that. I think he's going to be there, and I think we may see a fairy tale where he walks off, wins the whole damn thing, and tells people, all right, now can you guys include me in the discussion with Messi as the best ever?
Bro, as a Portuguese person, you're killing me right now. I'm fucking dying.
Wait, no, I look at things from a different perspective in terms of guys that it's kind of like Tom Brady, right? Like guy like leaves New England, like has a point to prove. And Ronaldo and how Ronaldo exited United was probably not the best thing that he did.
People forget that his kid died like 6 months before.
He went through quite a bit that year. So I think he may have said some things that were emotionally not the best way to do things, but we all do that sometimes. We speak from emotion and we make mistakes, and people need to understand that.
He wasn't wrong about United though. Like he wasn't wrong about United. Like
about it. Jose's talked about it, and you look at so United was actually losing 2-0 a little bit ago. They finally tied it 2-2.
I just saw the notification. Yeah,
it's funny. But United, like I look at them and I'm kind of like, not to be a Ronaldo fanboy, I think Ten Hag is the most overrated coach in the Premier League or in the world. I think it's still a dumpster fire there. You're down 2-0 at home to Nottingham Forest. I guess they tied now, but I get it. But
it was 4 minutes in, they were down 2-0.
Yeah. And the way he was, and I get what he was trying to do, but no other coach has ever done that to Ronaldo. What he did with the subbing him on at 89 minutes last year.
Yeah, and asking him to like
try to
show up,
Ancelotti never did that to him. Jose never did. Nobody's ever done that to him. And yeah, granted, different points in his career, but you can't do that to players, especially a Ronaldo. Not to say that there's different rules, but I think a player like him, you don't do that. It's just embarrassing. Why don't you just take the 16-year-old off the bench and let him on and give him the experience?
Yeah.
I think Go ahead.
So talk to me about the 2024 Euro. There's going to be more teams this year,
Yeah,
right? Some have said that the Euro is harder to win than the World Cup.
I agree.
I think so too, because it's a lot harder to qualify. There's way better teams in Europe than there are in the world. No disrespect to the rest of the world. Now there's now more teams in this Euro. That being said, I mean the teams that are qualifying are still going to be. I mean, if you look at the teams that don't qualify in Europe, Norway doesn't qualify for any tournament, and they've got one of the best players in the world. Actually, two of, if you include Martin Odegaard in that conversation, and truly you should, because that kid is unreal. And that's another guy who at Madrid at 16 years old, everyone called a bust. And now everyone's seeing how he's a world-class midfielder.
Is he now 22 or 23?
20, I think he might be 20, 23 or 24.
Still young.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Going into the Euro, do you have a team that I know it's like a year out. Yeah, it's about a year out. Is there a team that you're looking at? Are there players that you're looking at? Are you already starting to target? When will you start to target? I just asked you like 3 questions.
Yeah, I haven't started to really like kind of study that yet. Because with the expanded kind of teams in the tournament, it makes it a little tougher, right? Obviously, I'm rooting for Portugal, number one, and first and foremost. I'm not. I hope I'm wrong because I do not like this coach. They
You
have
don't
looked
like no?
like Roberto Martinez at all. I wanted Jose, obviously, but
Of course.
they don't want to let him walk yet. Or they didn't want him to coach both at the same time. Um, but he's proven me wrong this far. I don't think they've lost yet. They've looked really good.
Really good.
I think Portugal is going to have the heavy task of trying to incorporate. I still really feel like they need to incorporate Felix and Leao into the lineup to start together with Ronaldo and Bernardo. I just for them to be really successful, I think that's important. Or
What about
even
Bruno Fernandez? Where does he fit in?
he plays. I
Okay.
think obviously.
Starts?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Um, I man, the Euro. I think you're gonna have your typical usual suspects. I think of one team that I think that could be a surprise. So who are contenders? England's a contender, obviously.
Of course.
France, obviously. Portugal's there. I think Belgium's on the down low now a little bit. They're
Me
getting old,
too.
so they're kind of. I'm not sure to expect a lot. I think a team that could be a strong team besides their coach. I don't think their coach is very good. Holland's got some really interesting young players. They got Cooper Miners that's playing in Serie A, I think he's an excellent player, and people just haven't watched him to understand how good he is.
My buddy's a diehard Juve fan. He's like watches a ton of Serie A, and he's been talking about Coop Miners for at least 8 months.
Yeah, the he's an incredible player, I think, and their only problem, I think their coach is terrible. Who's Ronnie Koeman's back there again,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
he just destroys everything he goes
I
to.
mean,
So
same thing with Van Hal, and they just keep rotating between the two.
yeah, I don't know why Van Hal didn't stay because I like Van Hal. I think he's a good coach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Holland's a team to kind of watch out because they've been kind of silent over the last few years. Germany is still people still love Germany, and they have the talent.
They're going through like a youth phase now though. Like a lot of their kids, because like they won the under 21 World Cup, I think, didn't they?
They beat Portugal in the final.
Yes. Yeah. So they got a lot of those kids that are kind of like making that transition. So it's gonna be very interesting. It's also in Germany, so I think that could play somewhat of a factor into the tournament as well. Like that's one of the teams that I was looking at as like, this could get really interesting, especially if Kai Havertz figures this shit out and Timo Werner's actually like, I mean, essentially playing the way that we know he's capable of. That not the Timo Werner that was in Chelsea, but the Timo Werner that was with Leipzig previously. There's yeah, that's definitely a team that I'm looking at for sure.
And I still think, I mean, they really disappointed me at the World Cup, but Serbia could be a really good team at the Euros too. I thought they would be like a quarterfinal team at the World Cup, and they were just really disappointing. And I don't know if that was kind of, I think Dusan was hurt at the World Cup too. I don't think people realize that. Nothing ever came out, but I could just watching him play, I could tell something wasn't right.
Yeah.
He's another guy. I think if he gets a transfer from Juve, he kind of could have a resurgence in the hobby too, as well. So there's, you have your typical suspects. You have some teams that potentially could do some damage. Norway, it's not only Holland and Odegaard. They've got some other really talented players.
Yeah.
He's
Was
got
it
one of the kids.
Kierkegaard? Is that what his name is?
One of the
KJAE.
ones, and you have Schlerdrup, who now his dad is saying wants out of Benfica because they signed Di Maria and he's not getting the playing time. I'm like, kid,
What a
you're
signing though, man.
8 years old, dude.
I
Like,
know.
let things happen at Benfica, you'll be fine. So it looks like he's going to be out the door, and I think Benfica's still going to make money on him, so they don't care at this point.
Yeah.
So, but Holland's an interesting team to watch. Holland, excuse me,
Norway.
is interesting. They've got those players. They've got one other kid that I think could be a potentially good player. He plays for Celta, Vigo.
I like Sorloth too. Like I don't know how. I mean,
Good. He's a little older though.
yeah.
So
No, I'm not saying as like a rookie to target, but I'm just saying as like a fairly good player on the pitch. Like it's not like they're like a two man. Everyone's like, oh, they're two players. I'm like, nah, they got like a decent squad.
yeah. The other guy is Jorgen Strand Larsen.
Yes,
For Norway, who's
yeah.
a Eagle player. I think he had about 9 or 10 goals last
I
year.
feel like he played for AC, didn't he? What am I? Strand Larson.
I'm not sure if he did or
I
not.
could be wrong. Anyway, keep going.
Got a 21-22 like Road to Guitar rookie card. He may have a mega cracks. I'm not positive. And he also may be in the select set this year. I haven't looked at that. I bought the Road to Guitar one, like pink, I think numbered to 25. I got it really cheap. It was like $3,
That's crazy.
and it got a 9, but I don't care. Like I already
No.
have, so it's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
because a lot of the stuff that I grade is stuff that no one's graded.
yeah.
And like, I'm
And
just
like
trying.
short printed to 25. I mean, I don't think the 9 or 10 really matters at that point, right? Like,
No. So yeah, Norway was a good call out there. They've got some good young talent. Whether they put it together, I don't know. Holland's incredible. We know he can change games, but he's still not. Like I've had people call me a Holland hater too, because I prefer Mbappe over Holland. But they're two different players.
yeah.
You know, I like Holland, but I'm not like give me Ronaldo, give me R9 all day
I was
long.
just about to say, I'm like, he's not R9's level. Like, he's not
People
because like
think
R9 could take over games. I know he like, especially for Brazil and for the Inter teams, like the squad that he had behind him was ridiculous. But he also had the ability to like take that ball from in between like the midfield and box and just go off. And like we've yet to see that with Holland. He's incredibly clinical,
yeah,
and like he knows like the right place, the right time. That's exactly all the things you want from a striker. He's agile, he's flexible, he's good with both feet, relatively speaking. He's like great head, like great in the air. So like everything you want in a striker, he's a complete package. But I just have not seen him take over like very many games.
yeah, or even score that I call them decisive or crucial goals. Like, don't care what anybody says. Ronaldo, not R9 I'm talking, but I'm going to talk about CR7.
CR7, yeah.
He's the most clutch player in history, in the history of soccer. No question. Guy scores goals when they're needed at the times they need them to help his team. So we haven't seen Holland have to do that yet. And until he does, I'm kind of still reserved in terms, and I have some of his stuff, but I'm kind of still like reserved in saying he's better than R9. No way. R9 is probably the best striker I've ever seen in my life.
Crazy.
And I was reading a quote actually from Mourinho. He said that he's the best player he's ever seen in his
Ever
life.
seen, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, power, the speed, the strength, like that's your striker right there. That's when we were growing up. That's who everybody wanted to be like. Ronaldo R9, so he may get there. We don't know. I watch Holland run sometimes and I'm like, man, he looks like he's working so hard running like that.
Yeah,
Where you
yeah, yeah.
R9, it was like this guy's just like he's just humanly gifted, like superior than the other player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, like it's at the Jogo Bonito way that's a little more finesse though. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like same thing with like Dinho. Dinho never looked like he was trying too hard, but I mean, it's
and even
absolutely magnificent.
back and look at some Portuguese players like that too. I mean, Deco was obviously Brazilian, but he played for Portugal. Another guy that Rui Costa too. Um, Luis Figo
We don't speak of Rui Costa on this podcast.
player, and I actually bought it while I was over there. I had a jersey made.
Yeah.
But like Figo's the other example, like where he was kind of a power speed, for a right winger, left winger guy that could interchange. I don't think there's anybody in the world right now that I would take over Figo from that era. There isn't. It's it's hard. I look at that era. You might look at the era like I do, that kind of late '90s or like mid 2000s. I think we had better players. Let's say the top 10 players in the world versus the top 10 players today in that
Yeah.
era.
Yeah. I mean, like the Zidans, the Thierry Henrys, like, I mean, those guys all, like, you can't even, the players of today, you can't mention in the same category as a lot of those players, man. Like,
I think with the soccer, going back to it when we first started talking, was you look at those guys from that era and their cards are stickers, right?
that's my point.
Going to catch up to the other stuff from, the other sports. It's going to eventually. It's just a matter of patience, right? Not to go back to cards here, but that has a big, I think I have a really bullish, strong outlook on that stuff. So if like you're running into like, you know, Zidane early 2000s or Zidane 90s stuff, like gobble those things up. Figo's
I have a not, I mean, I have a good chunk of like my PC stuff is like Maradona, Ronaldo, like CR7,
coats.
uh, Zidane, and Henry. And I'm like, those guys are, in my mind, untouchable. They can be in the conversation of like the greatest. I mean, probably. I mean, up until now, for sure. We'll see what happens in the future, but at their positions, like guys with, I guess not multiple World Cups because you throw Ronaldo in there, but just players that'll never be forgotten.
No, no. I mean, Zidane, like I've said this many of times. Zidane is the best player I ever saw play in my life to this day. Uh, I don't care that Messi's around. I love Ronaldo because he's Portuguese, but Zidane is the best player I've ever seen play, given that he didn't need to score goals to influence the outcome of games.
Yeah.
He's just an incredible player, and a lot of collectors they might be younger, so they never got to see him. But he's a guy. He won a World Cup. He
Another final.
went to another final. Yeah, he got a
Marco Materazzi.
yeah with the little headbutt.
Yeah.
The only time I hated him was in the Portugal semifinals of the Euro of 2000.
You and me both
Trump,
when we gave up that penalty.
gave up the penalties. Trump punches the ref in the gut. It was a mess. It was an embarrassing for Portugal.
We always get fucked in the quarterfinals, eh?
UEFA doesn't. It's known. It's not conspiracy that that's too. He says UEFA just does not like Portugal. They don't like little countries. They'd rather give Spain, the bigger countries, the notoriety. And it kind of brings back the old Messi Ronaldo kind of debate where, and I think the media is doing it now with Mbappe and Holland. You need to have a villain and a hero.
Of course.
Messi was the hero during this whole Messi Ronaldo rivalry, and now Mbappe's turning into the villain guy.
Yeah.
Who's the good guy, right? So
Yeah.
there's a narrative there being played. And we always hear the argument, oh, Portugal. Listen, Portugal's a country of 8 million.
Literally. And before Ronaldo, honestly, there was no, and that's one of the reasons why, like, we talked about at the beginning of the show, like he was from Sporting. And so, as a Sportingista, as a Portuguese or as a Portista, I couldn't collect like a Sporting player. And then after a certain amount of time, I realized that the impact that this guy was having on the country as a whole, I was like, there's no way in hell I can't support this as a Portuguese person. Cause like all of a sudden it became cool to be Portuguese.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like being Portuguese wasn't associated with like construction workers or laborers or cause like that's like when I was growing up, like that's what Portuguese people were. Like they were, and again, like there's no disrespect that like, but like that was like the ceiling. Do you know what I mean? Like
grape squisher. So I mean,
bro, that's like my none of my grandparents, like none of them had any education. They literally like they grew up on Hub the Page, which is literally like a tiny ass island. And I looked it up. There's maybe 8,000 people on this island, so like that's farmland, generally speaking. There's nothing there. There's a school system. Good luck with that. And you just kind of lived a very simple life. And so like along came this kid who completely changed the perception of Portugal as a whole, where now all of a sudden it's like this the desired destination to go vacation to. And like a lot of people from North America have secondary homes in Portugal, and it's this beautiful, wonderful place. But I he is a large reason why why it's relevant, straight up.
But but one of the things that now here's the other thing we have to think about. We've had 3 players, I think. Eusebio won best player in the world too. So you have
Yeah.
Eusebio, Ronaldo. Not many countries say they've had 3 players. England's only had 1.
Yeah.
You know who it was?
George Best?
Oh, Michael Owen. People forget.
Really?
Yeah. Um, so we've had 3 Ballon d'Or winners or FIFA players of the world, best players in the world, right? And people continue to make this comparison between Portugal and Argentina. I'm like, listen, Argentina's got 30, 40 million people. Portugal's got 8 million. It's a very hard kind of debate to have on who produces the most talent. Argentina obviously has more to pull from.
Yeah.
Even Brazil, but going back to the Portugal thing and Ronaldo, why he's become so revered and I think part of it, and I'm not saying it's not because of what he's done and how he's played, and because a lot of kids want to emulate it, but we live in a time of social media helps that.
Yes.
Having soccer games on TV again does that, because you don't have to go to the Portuguese club and pay $15 to go watch the game,
Yeah.
because everything in to order the game, or
Yeah.
satellite dish they got to buy to watch the games. We no longer have those issues, so that's helped. Because again, going back to that era, if we had watched some of those players play more, I mean, people might know who they are more, and you might have these values might be higher too on some of these guys. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it is a big thing. I just got back from there, and we spent our last 3 days in Lisbon, and I took my wife. She's never been over there. We tried to go to the Monastery of Geronimo's, which is in Lisbon. It's in Belém, and it's where Vasco da Gama is buried, and a bunch of other famous Portuguese kind of kings, and Camões is buried there too, I think, the legendary Portuguese poet. But we got there, the line was the length of the monastery, and
Really?
I have never ever seen Lisbon like this before. It's become a hotspot. Like you said, to go to Portugal is very popular now. And a few reasons from my observations while I was there. One of them being things are really cheap there. So you go to, let's say, go for in Portugal, they have it called the cesta, not the siesta,
Yeah. Yeah.
cesta.
Yeah.
But Portugal, they do a little different. They don't really take naps. They go out and eat first, then they have a nap. But you go and get a steak sandwich, which is a prego and the pound, right? You get 2 of those, maybe 2 beers, maybe you have 2 coffees after. We're talking like 8, 9 euros.
No way. Really?
Yeah, it's wild. You go out to eat, 4 people go out to eat, like me, my wife, my parents would go. We'd have maybe an app or 2. Then you'd have entrees, including octopus, cod, like good food, dessert, coffees, and a shot, uh, pitcher of sangria and a bottle of wine, $45. I mean, like, this is why people are going to Portugal, because they understand, not that they set the prices, but the prices are really good there, especially on food and drink. And I think your money stretches a long way in terms of that. The one kind of cost prohibitive thing is if you go there to buy like American Levi's and stuff like that, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Of course. But like, why
then
would you do that then?
you do that anyways, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's kind of the what's going on there. And my wife, she says, well, this tastes different. Everything's fresher there. For those that don't know, not to go off tangent here, but
This
Portugal's
is actually an ad to visit Portugal.
got the strictest, some of the strictest food standards in the world. For between supermarkets and between restaurants. So, go to Portugal. Yeah, it's great. Lisbon's a little bit more expensive, and Porto's getting really popular too. Porto's an absolutely, I hate their team, but their city is a phenomenal city. It's a great place. But I rarely looked for cards while I was there. When I had the chance, I looked, but I couldn't find anything. So I was kind of hoping that I'm gonna run into somebody who's got some Ronaldo like
Like a mega cracks, you know, like just hidden somewhere.
store and just like for like €5 and just buy. No, I didn't run into anything like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah. Like I feel like even if I mean you come there with like the North American standards for sports cards and memorabilia, and like you offer someone down there like I don't know €300 or €400 for like a raw mega cracks, like I think you're good.
Yeah, I mean, minimum wage in Portugal is €750. So, think about that for a second. Everyone out there that's listening, €750, and people are living fine. But like you said, you offer somebody
A
300,
month?
yeah,
No,
minimum wage. Yeah.
really.
My dad says that if you have, let's say, 12 to $1,500 in wages a month, you live like a king.
Wow.
Listen, Coach Co, it's 70 cents for a draft of beer.
I know that. That's crazy.
Oh,
That's
because
enough reason to get me to go there.
euro and 30 cents. So, but what's really interesting? I looked for stickers, like stickers from last year and this coming year. I don't know if this year's has come out yet, but I couldn't find any.
Really?
Like, which was interesting because I was like, I figured they would have more, like the Portuguese league stickers. I
Yeah.
didn't find any at all anywhere. I went to the Continent's a big market there. They've got it's kind of like the Walmart, but like a lot nicer.
Yeah.
Uh, but I couldn't find any stickers at all. And I was like, I want to buy like 2 boxes and bring them back with me. I could not find them.
It's wild. That's crazy. Paulo, you got to tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can reach out to you, where they can support your channel and maybe, figure out a little bit more about, you've got a podcast as well. So I'm going to give you the floor. Go for
I
it.
have my podcast since I've been back, but I'm going to record coming up this week, and hopefully we'll have you on in the coming month or so too. But you can follow me on Instagram. It's at Special One Cards, so Special ONE Cards. Shoot me a DM. I'm always happy to interact with people. I do post some players that I'm looking at. The last few posts have been about my trip to Portugal. Wanted you guys to kind of see and experience what I experienced and kind of a visual representation. But I'm back on the grind. There is I don't know when your podcast coming up, but there is a post coming out today about Alejandro Mark. So so people are aware, and I'm gonna actually tune in and see if I don't have that influence, but you might letters.
Yeah, we'll see. This one's gonna debut in a few weeks, but so there might be a little bit of a delay.
But yeah, please reach out with any questions. I'm happy to help. I also collect hockey, like and I'm still learning a lot in that market. I generally don't flip a lot of hockey either. I keep it because I love the cards.
I
So
love that.
I love the cards themselves. So it's hard for me to like dispose of stuff.
That's awesome. Brother, I want to thank you so much for jumping on the podcast today and giving me an opportunity to really feel like I'm at home with the person across the table from me. So I appreciate you. Team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Cardboard Coach. Please go follow Special One Cards, and Coach Co and Special One are out of here. Peace.